Power is slowly returning to the roughly half of India that lost electricity this week. India's power grids took a second major hit in as many days. Grids that supply electricity to nearly 700 million people collapsed, stranding travelers, trapping coal miners, and bringing much of the country to a standstill. India's power minister blamed the crisis on some regions drawing more than their share of electricity from the overburdened grid. Asia's third largest nation suffers a peak power deficit that's been hurting its economy. Power shortages have been a drag on India's efforts to industrialize. The global recession has forced the country to scale back $1 trillion in infrastructure improvements over the next 5 years. The largest companies in India have their own power plants or diesel generators to protect themselves in power outages, but smaller businesses don't. A senior economist at India's National Institute of Public Finance says today's outage will have a substantially adverse effect on India's economy. Today, the central bank in India cut the economic forecast for the country for the fiscal year that ends in March to 6.5%. That's down from 7.3%. Eric Stein is a portfolio manager at Eaton Vance, where he helps manage the global macro absolute return, with us tonight in Boston. Eric, does this blackout, the largest in some cases ever that the world has seen, give you pause as an investor in India?
Hey, Tom, great to be with you. It does give some pause. I think it's very synonymous with a lot of the short-term problems that India has. You know, we at Eaton Vance have a long-term optimistic view of India, but there are so many short-term problems, and this is certainly one of them.
Yeah, so what does this blackout tell you about the prospects for the Indian economy in the short term?
Well, I think in the short term, it's just one of many problems that the Indian economy has. They have a lot of problems with their legislature trying to get bills passed to open up the country, to have multi-brand retailers in. They haven't been able to do that. Politically, India is not in very good shape. And here's another reason why one would want to be bearish in the short term on the Indian economy, because all these businesses aren't able to get power. So I think it's one of many hurdles that the Indian economy has.
And we saw that reflected with the GDP growth forecast being reduced in advance of the blackout. So how does this situation hit the domestic economy first, and then look at it from a foreign trade perspective?
How it hits the domestic economy. So a lot of the larger companies in India, they have their own power generators because power generation is so unreliable in India. So it doesn't really hurt them, but it hurts the smaller companies, the small and medium enterprises of India, because they rely on the general state power grid. So it hurts them, and also it just hurts confidence in the Indian economy. Right now, India needs to have strong reforms to get capital and money flowing back into the Indian economy, and this is one of, again, many things that India has going wrong for it right now.
The lack of generators for small companies may be that short-term solution, but that confidence, as you mentioned, that really is that long-term concern out there. So how do you approach it from a long-term investment perspective?
Well, you know, we at Eaton Vance in our global macro strategy, we've had a long position in the Indian rupee for a long time. We've played around with it a little bit over the past couple months. We've reduced it somewhat, added a little bit, but by and large, we wanted to always keep something there because of the long-term growth story. India's really good demographics, the fact that it's a democracy, but we've been cautious because of these many short-term problems that we have right now. You
know, India has held a lot of potential throughout many years, one of the BRIC countries, of course, but it also has never really fulfilled that promise of expectation, of economic expectation. When could it? When do you think that the veil of uncertainty may be lifted to some degree? Is it a matter of decades?
Hopefully not decades. I think in decades from now, certainly India's demographics will be a lot better than China, and that helps them. But I think right now what could go right in India is that everyone is so pessimistic. Everyone is so bearish. They just need a couple of things to turn in the right direction, and you'll see confidence and momentum back there. But certainly we're not there right now.
Looking at India from an investment perspective with the blackout, Eric Stein along with us in Boston. He's with Eaton Vance.